from within is the rise of
All right, so Friday class. I think I got the Ustream up. So, alright, that's running. Alright, we live on the Ustream. Let me get the link out. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I'm just getting the link out to everybody right quick.
This is also why the Europeans here took our nationality and put brands on us and start teaching the Negro preachers to tell us they were Afrocentric identities. So our people are walking around calling themselves Negro, Black, and Colored and feeling free to do that, not knowing that it makes them non-descendants. And when you give them the law facts, they think you're competing with the schools of thought.
Islam. Peace and love.
It is legal status.
All right. Still getting this out. Let me drop this on the book. On the faces. So today we're just getting started. Well, not really just getting started, but it's been a crazy day. And so as always, happy holiday to all the active Moors out there. As always, we've got different stuff going on and whatnot, so just bear with us as we bring all of these these loose ends together for this time. And it's now 6:37, so we're going to get started today. So today we in the spirit of review, similar to what we did last week, we're kind of taking a step back in our speed, in our pace, and our manner here. And a couple weeks ago or two, we were talking about the writ of discovery, right? Now, the writ of discovery is not to be confused with the doctrine of discovery, which of course is, for general census and purposes, is an act of imperialism. You know what I mean? And in America, it acted in the form of colonialism. When you look at Horace Greeley's information, and they talk about "Go West, young man," and that whole European transition with the they show you with the stage coaches and all of that, and like if you're familiar with Wells Fargo and all of that confusion that's been going on with them, you see the stage coach on their emblem and everything. That's putting emphasis on that time when they were running fiat and funds for different gold and oil businessmen at the time. But long story short, I suffice that to say, you don't want to get that confused with a writ of discovery. All right. One is is points of history and time. The other one is a lawful writ, right? That as an Aboriginal Indigenous Moor, or as a quote unquote judge or magistrate, one would write to another court or a lower court, for say an appeal or for an interlocutory appeal or things of that sort. So, different stages in the process, whatever you're talking about. But initially, at the beginning of the case, you'll have something that's known if you ever dealt with a case. Fortunately or unfortunately, there's a period known as discovery, right? And when we talk about discovery, oftentimes there's some failures sometimes, and a lot of times we don't know what it is we can do to deal with those failures or miscarriages of justice, that often happen. And it often, more than likely than not, can be cleared up with a good writ of discovery, right? Because with the good writ of discovery, I can cover, all the grounds and bases that I need to discover or find out those facts that I normally may not be able to get from a willing defendant or prosecutor. You know what I mean? Or opposite party for this matter. And so with the writ, and typically if you're dealing with courts or whatever, it would be in the form of a motion. But as more as we do with writs. So with the writ, you're asking or you're demanding that the person give you certain information or tell you certain information based on your request, right? And this is a formal legal process, that they have to respond to. And if they don't, then there's some, legal and lawful consequences from there, right? In terms of being in default, right? Technical default based on the matter, right? Now, one rule that you guys may want to check out and maybe find some commonalities in the roots of the Constitution, and if you understand due process, you may be able to find some other things. But just to let you know that there is something within their system, there is a rule that addresses these types of things. I just wanted to point out Rule 37 of the quote-unquote Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, right? Which we know is a de facto corporation, and we know that as Moors, we gave them, Muslim law, with, which, in our understanding today, is in so many words a Frankenstein version of what we today call American law, in so many ways, shapes, and forms. But it's colored, right, in lots of statutes, ordinances, and codes that were not properly ratified or totally disregard or go against the Constitution, right? Though it has been legislatively couched in the Constitution, when you really get into the effects and the follow through of a lot of these things, they're not following the Constitution. They're following something else. You know what I mean? And I'll let others determine and figure that out. But typically, you're looking at a corporatocracy that doesn't care about the people. You know what I mean? It only cares about maintaining that corporatocracy. But anyway, Rule 37: failure to make disclosures or to cooperate in discovery. And it's got sanctions, right? And it goes in, and this is just highlights that I'm reading here, and I'll let you guys go check it out. But it's Rule 37. But you've got a under Part A here, it says motion for an order, which again we're dealing with writs, but just whenever you see motion, just think writs for right now. But motion for an order compelling disclosure or discovery. 1. In general, on notice to other parties and all affected persons, a party may move for an order compelling disclosure or discovery. The motion, or writ, must include a certification that the movement has in good faith conferred or attempted to confer with the person or party failing to make disclosure or discovery in an effort to obtain it without court action, right? Now right there, that might be shown in the form of, I don't know, a letter, maybe certified, maybe certified, so that somebody has to, sign for it when they get it. But I don't know, I'm not trying to give any legal advice. I'm just, kind of reading this on my own accord, and just, giving my own personal thoughts. So please don't take anything that I'm saying and run with it. I just look like a smart guy. I'm really just, I'm done with it. I promise you. I'm very slow when it comes to this type of stuff. 2, appropriate court, a motion, right? Number 2, appropriate court, a motion for an order to a party must be made in the court where the action is pending. A motion for an order to a non-party must be made in the court where the discovery is or will be taken, right? So that's why, typically when you seeing people, you do want to CC whatever quote-unquote tribunal is claiming to hold jurisdiction over the matter, immediate jurisdiction over the matter, as well as, CCing everybody else. And that's just typical. Typically you want to put the other person that you're corresponding with, and dealing with on notice, because otherwise they wouldn't know what was going on. They wouldn't. How else would they be abreast of the newest occurrences in the case? Now something interesting I have highlighted here is specific motions. A, it says to compel disclosure if a party fails to make a disclosure required by Rule 26A, any other party may move to compel disclosure for appropriate sanctions, right? Then Part B says to compel a discovery response, a party seeking discovery may move for an order compelling an answer, designation, production, or inspection, right? So you can compel for an under Part B right here is saying under their rules that you have the right to compel an answer, designation, production, or inspection, right? And it says this motion may be if one, so these are the different actions that may trigger it, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly. One, or the opponent fails to answer a question asked under Rule 30 or 31. 2, a corporation or other entity fails to make a designation under Rule 30B, 6, or 31A4. 3, a party fails to answer an interrogatory submitted under Rule 33, or 4, a party fails to respond that inspection will be permitted or fails to permit inspection as requested under Rule 34. I'm not going to interpret it. I'm just reading it, and I thought you might want to check it out. But there's more to it. You know, there's a lot more to Rule 37 here. Yep. Now, and there are sanctions, just so you know. And that would be under B2. All right. So failure to comply with the court order. And let me just run through some of these sanctions, just so you have, just maybe to kind of get the wheels turning. So for not obeying a discovery order under Part A, and then it lists, right, some things in the following. So I, directing that the matters embraced in the order or other designated facts be taken as established for purposes of the action as the prevailing party claims, prohibiting the disobedient party from supporting or opposing designated claims or defenses, or from introducing designated matters in evidence. And that's a very important thing, because you start talking about prohibiting certain information, and oftentimes when we're dealing with these mass killings that are going on, and these Judge Dredd executions that are happening in the streets, by means of civil procedure and the rules of evidence, they're suppressing certain information. And when you get into the rules of evidence, you'll find more information about how they do that. But continuing, Part 3, striking pleadings in whole or in part. 4, staying further proceeding until the order is obeyed. 5, dismissing the action or proceeding in whole or in part. 6, rendering a default judgment against the disobedient party. Or 7, treating as contempt of court the failure to obey any order except an order to submit to a physical or mental examination. All right, and typically this would be determined by, a judge, magistrate, trier of facts, or a jury if you really push the issue. But yeah, that's just some things I thought I would highlight, and that's coming from the Civil Rules of Procedure. Now I've got an older version. Mine is all beat up, as you can see. This is like the 13th edition. There's newer editions out there, but you can find the older one pretty cheap, and just check the newer versions to see what's up to date if you want to. All right, but so for all those who had the homework, I like to get into that pretty quickly here. So as I'm pulling that up, do we have any questions in the room? I just want to make sure that y'all are still there and kicking with me. Holler at me in the chat. Let me know that the screen's not frozen on your end. And I'll just say hello, just to see. And if y'all hear a pop, go and hit that little bubble and respond back. All right, Islam. So we still good in the chat room. And again, all you guys on Ustream and Facebook checking in with us. So thank you guys. But yeah, I had assigned some homework for you guys who are linked in with us on the Moor Book Learn More forum. Shouts out to everybody linked in and signed up with us there. So today's class, like I said, it was going to be a short, quick review of the writ of discovery. If you guys have any questions, you know what I mean, we'll get back into that a little bit later. But I want to get into the meat and potatoes of things today before we get too late. You know, before it gets too late this evening. So I got that pulled up, and let me just share a screen for you guys in the chat with me, so you all will know and can follow along with me. So this was the homework here, and I'm just going to be reading the top portion here. I'm not going to read all of it, you know, because I want to bore you guys to sleep. But I wanted to highlight some things. Now, this is Executive Order 13 or 13107, right? Titled Implementation of Human Rights Treaties. Now, this was signed under William J. Clinton, or Bill Clinton's administration in 1998, December 10th, right? And it says in the intro here, it says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution, right, and the laws of the United States of America, right, and bearing in mind the obligations of the United States, right? So you see how they got the United States of America, and then they said bearing in mind the obligations of the United States, okay? Those are two different entities, you know, going back to previous classes and other studies, right? And when you look at the Constitution, the preamble, and it talks about we the people, right? And then it goes on to talk about forming a more perfect union, and it says the United States. The United States is a corporate entity, all right? It is not the de jure government, as people have believed that it is. And we know this because they are operating purely under, you know, military auspices, all right? And that is again confirmed by the gold fringes that you see along those flags, right? So when a nation has to rule by force and they can no longer rule by law, the military has to step in, you know, martial law and all that good stuff, which we've been under martial law pretty much all of our lifetimes, you know what I mean, for most of us who've lived in America in the past, I don't know, about 100 years, 200 years. Because, you know, we've constantly had wars over and over and over again, you know what I mean? World War I, World War II, right? Vietnam, right? Prior to that, you had the Civil War, and then you had all sorts of other skirmishes or, you know, battles in between that. But I just reiterate that, you know, to highlight the fact that when Puerto Rico defaulted, notice somewhere around that time there was an announcement that all of this money came missing from the Pentagon's budget and the Defense Department's budget, right? And you know, we've got some defaults. Country goes, you know, under, and you know, the power goes out, you know, things of that sort. And it's almost like, you know, what happens when you forget to pay the power bill, or you intentionally don't pay the power bill because, you know, you're in protest or whatever, or you just don't have it. You know, like I said, you might forget, and they remind you because they cut it off. All right, that's what happened with Puerto Rico. Because, and I was having, you know, some conversations with some different people, and they were saying that they're going about it the wrong way because, you know, the marching and the protesting, which unfortunately, you know, we in the States are kind of blamed because we've gone along with this whole Black Lives Matter, you know, marching, protesting, let's lay down dead in the street stuff. And so it caught on and became popular in the past, you know, 2-3 years. And like now, that's the new thing. That's the it thing. That's the way to show, you know, our honor and respect and to try to carry on the lineage and, you know, and all that good stuff. Uh-oh, let me make sure everything's straight. But let me just reset. So, all right, just resetting, making sure we're still good here. Let me get the screen share back up. But before I do that, just, you know, just to finish the thought, we really, you know, have to keep in mind where we are in history, where we are in time, you know, and pay attention to those reference points, you know, that like Tyus likes to drop all the time, pay attention to those reference points, because that's what's going to give you some indication or some inkling as to what's going on right now, today, you know, and where the root causes of those particular problems are coming from, or where socially, politically, we could point to in history and say, you know, no, it was at that point, you know, publicly, you know, when the H-bomb fell, that's when we knew that the atomic bomb was real. You know what I mean? When they dropped it on Nagasaki and, you know, Hiroshima. So, you know, going back to landmarks, demonstrations, and activity, it's the active and not passive, right, that make the change and make the difference in the world. Islam. So getting back, and let me just read this and stop jaw-jacking. But I just really wanted to give that as you know, background to what it is we're talking about, because these languages, or the connotative language, as well as the differences that happen, and the confusion that happens, comes up because we often too often, more so often than not, don't pay attention to those minor details, you know what I mean, that are staring us right in the face. But anyway, so we're right here at the top, and I just wanted to read this part right here so that we can have a understanding. So, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and bearing in mind the obligations of the United States pursuant to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, CAT for short, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, CERD, right, for short, and other relevant treaties concerned with the protection and promotion of human rights, to which the United States is now or may become a party in the future, it is hereby ordered as follows, right? And so then section 1 says, implementation of human rights obligations. A, it shall be the policy and practice of the government of the United States being committed to the protection and promotion, right? So the government has to be protected. The government of the United States, based on this, it's a part of their policy. It's stated to be a part of their practice, okay? That they have to be committed to the protection and promotion of human rights and fundamental freedoms, fully, not partially, not sometimes, you know, not with great expediency, but fully to respect and implement its obligations under the international human rights treaties to which it is a party, including the ICCPR, the CAT, and the CERD. So all of those previous documents, right, that they're alluding to and talking about here are essentially a part and parcel of the law of the land at this point, right? Let me just reset because it seems like we're losing some people. I just want to make sure everybody's here. Got a lot of people in the class today. Got up to 5 already. Good grief. All right, goodness gracious. So yeah, we're back. So just to make sure y'all are following me, there are 3 other, you know, international binding agreements that the quote unquote United States is signed on to. All right, and they're supposed to be supporting. They're supposed to be upholding these principles. Okay, based on this, and if you read through the rest of it, you know, it tells you what it's about. But another part of the homework that I wanted you guys to check out, you know, and look into, because it mentions this particular document directly, and there was some language in it that really just kind of stuck out to me when we were talking about and going over the, you know, Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And, you know, when you're trying to put a timeline together, as far as what happened and what predates what, and to see where these concepts, where Moors are getting these concepts from, typically you can go to international conventions, multilateral treaties and agreements, and you can find some of the very same language amongst these international accords and documents, as well as the constitutions, right, of the various states and countries. So let me make sure that you guys can see what I'm seeing in the chat here, right? All right, so that's up. It's acting slow. Y'all just bear with me. All right, I'm gonna shut that down. Shut that. All right, here we go. So, number 14668, Multilateral International Convention on Civil Rights and Political Rights, adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations on 19th of December, 1966, right? And it says authentic text. So these are different languages, because typically with these, international agreements and stuff, they're printed in different languages now, thank goodness. English, French, Chinese, Russian, and Spanish. So those are different languages you can find out. Registered ex officio on the 23rd March, 1976. So this is an official UN document, treaty, accord, covenant, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's multilateral, so meaning it involves more than two nations, right? And so we're just scrolling down. Oh my goodness. Y'all pardon me, this thing is acting slow. I'm gonna close some windows here. Maybe that'll help. So while we're waiting on that to clear up, and I'm getting rid of those windows. Alright, so looking at this, we're just kind of looking at the introduction, and I wanted you guys to read part 1 and part 2, so I'll just read it back to you guys and get it on the record here for those who didn't do the homework, unfortunately, for whatever reason. We're not gonna beat you up, but recognizing that these rights derive from the inherent dignity of the human person, right? Uh-oh, some of y'all dropped off. Let me reset. Somebody said it's showing up blank. Alright. Well, if it's showing up blank, it's in the we've already got it on files and everything in the reference section, so just get linked up, and if you can't find it, I'll direct it to you in that section. But let me finish reading this, because I think we had some people that dropped off. All right, you got it now? All right. So, recognizing that these rights derive from the inherent dignity of the human person, recognizing that in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they mentioned it by name, recognizing that in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the ideal of free human beings enjoying civil and political freedom and freedom from fear and want can only be achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his civil and political rights as well as his economic, social, and cultural rights, right? So right there, the document is telling you that these rights, this situation, right, these conditions have to be created. They're not just going to fall out the sky, all right? So just like the Constitution, and us being Moors and having issues and thousands of wars with the Europeans, we tried to form a more perfect union. We had to write it down, make it plain, like the Bible says, so that everybody could see it in black and white. And all right, that's what you're saying. Put it in different languages, translate it however you need to be translated. This is what the rules are, all right? This is what, these are the ideals we're shooting for here. These are our goals, right? For civil and political rights, okay? Then it says, as well as his economic, social, and cultural rights, okay? So we're not just concerned about the civics and the political stuff. We also worried about the economics, the social, and the cultural rights. So under that falls your family law, your economy, so how your money's moved, how all that's determined, and then your cultural rights. So what determines you being a part of a certain culture? How are you, how are people classified, so to speak? How are rights determined based on that? If I have a cultural affinity to jumping over a broom and you have one of putting a ring over a finger, how is that determined? How does one say that one is legal and the other is illegal, or one process is valid and the other is invalid? Well, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, based on human freedom and human expression, you determine that, as long as you're not hurting anybody physically or harming anybody else's rights to do the same, all right? Kind of reminds you of that concept that Yahshua or Isa said, where he said something about like doing to others you would have them doing to you, and that being the whole of the law or the greatest law, something like that. I don't know. I'm no Bible scholar. But it goes on to say here in the intro, considering the obligation of states under the Charter of the United Nations to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and freedoms. So these are rights and freedoms we're talking about fundamentally, right? And it says realizing that the individual having duties, so individuals having duties, AA 222141, ministers, consuls, ring a bell, anyway? All right, just keep that in mind. Realizing that the individual having duties to other individuals, uplifting fall of humanity. All right, anyway, and to the community to which he belongs, fidelity, house binding, is under a responsibility to strive for the promotion and observance of the rights recognized in the present convention. So let me just read through it straight. Realizing, all right, realizing that the individual having duties to other individuals and to the community to which he belongs is under a responsibility to strive for the promotion and observance of the right recognized in the present convention. So this present convention is recognizing all of this, in a nutshell. So part 1 and part 2, right? I'm not gonna, lament over it too much, but I just wanted to highlight some things for you guys, and again, get your wheels turning. Maybe you see something that I didn't, maybe I missed something. So you guys let me know. Part 1, Article 1, and then Article 1, I guess Section 1, because it didn't really say it right here if you're reading it with me. For those who can't see. All peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Number 2, all peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit, and international law. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Now sustenance or substance, how you want to say that? Let's just Google that right quick. Because I think this is a very, very important word right here. So, see right here, it says sustenance, noun, the action or fact of maintaining or supporting oneself at a minimum level, the means of doing this, right? Survival, existence, living life, nourishment, denoting or relating to production at a level of sufficient only for one's own use or consumption without any surplus for trade, right? So enough for you to use without anything going to waste, sounds like. And then under law, number 2, the law definition says the state of remaining in force of tongue twister here. The state of remaining in force or effect. The state of remaining in force or effect. 1800s word, all of that good stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. We'll unpack that later, you know, if need be, if there's any questions. If there's a question, let me know. But, you know, that should clear it up. We're talking about the means of living, right? Or the means of being able to take care of oneself in a nutshell, right? Number 3, the state's parties to the present convention, including those having responsibility. Am I still sharing? Oh, I'm not sharing with you guys. Hold on. Make sure y'all can see this. So, number 3, the state's parties to the present convention, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust, capital T-R-U-S-T, territories, comma, shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations. So when it's talking about this, the state's parties, right? The parties, just think political parties for right now. The state's parties to the present convention, because who's technically running the government? The political parties, the Republicans, the Democrats. That's who's claiming to represent the, you know, on the individual levels. That's the ideology that we're supposed to be dealing with, supposedly. So it says the state's parties to the present convention, including those having responsibility for the administration, right? And realize they're all working as administrators to what? Trust accounts. When we talk about the set secure by trust account, you know, go back to last week's class and go back to other classes that Taj talked about, right? So non-self-governing. So who would be the non-self-governing? The minorities, the Negroes, and trust territories. So sleepy-headed Moors who haven't, you know, taken the reins on that, you know, through, you know, organized body politic and all that good stuff. Trust territories, but keep in mind we're talking about trust territories, land, all right, or property, usufructs. So the non-self-governing, so the Negro slaves and the trust territories, the property of the Moors, shall promote the realization. So they got to promote it. They got to help it come to fruition. Not just be a thought, not just be a hope or an idea, but they have to promote it coming to being a real thing. Of the right of self-determination. So it's incumbent upon the individual to express that right too, right? That right to self-determination. Islam. And if you're just coming in, just mute out for me, so you know, mute out, not getting a whole bunch of stuff in the background. But and shall respect that right. So there's the enforcement right there. In conformity, right? Let's jump back. In conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, right? So that's their binding agreement, because all parties of the United Nations have to fall under this charter, okay? And if you follow that charter, you'll see some other obligations and some other, you know, duties that trustees are obligated to carry out, all right? Or other protean obligations, you know, what have you. So Part 2, Article 2. Number 1, each state party to the present convention undertakes to respect and ensure to all individuals within its territory, land, and subject to its jurisdiction, property, right? All individuals in its territory and subject to its jurisdiction. So that's all the, you know, naturalized citizens, you know, or like I said, the slaves or the property that's still lingering around, don't realize it, its territory and subject to its jurisdiction, the rights recognized in the present convention without distinction of any kind, such as race, color war, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, right, comma, national, look at this, political or other opinion, comma, national or social origin. Then it goes on to say property, birth, or other status. Number 2, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Keep that point in mind. It's very important. I underline. See where I got that highlighted. If you print it out, highlight it. Underline it 3-4 times. It's very important. It behooves you to look at this with a different set of eyes now after today. Number 2, where not already provided for by existing legislative or other measures, each state party to the present convention undertakes. So where it's not already expressed by the legislature, each party undertakes to take the necessary steps in accordance with its constitutional processes and with the provisions of the present convention to adopt such legislative or other measures as may be necessary to give effect to the rights recognized in the present convention. Right? So if it's not already written into the law, this is telling you that you need to write it into the law and that you're agreeing to do that very thing. And keep in mind, all right, that this was written, 1970s, 1960s and everything, and we didn't sign it until like 99. Let me scroll up. Yeah, like 99, 98, I want to say, when we actually signed on to this under the executive order 131, all right, 07. So that, how long has this been around? These aren't new concepts, people. Well, I'm trying to, I'm reiterating this, but just to go and finish up this section, right? So number 3, each state party to the present. So let me just read that part again. So where not already provided for by existing legislative or other measures, each state party to the present convention undertakes to take the necessary steps to legislate, or whatever it takes the necessary steps to be able to legislate or put it into law in accordance with its constitutional processes. So, the U.S. Constitution in this case, for lack of, conversational references, and with the provisions of the present convention to adopt such legislative or other measures as may be necessary to give effect to the rights recognized in the present convention. All right. And then number 3, it says each state party to the present convention undertakes to ensure, and so this outlines what they're supposed to be doing. To ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms is herein recognized are to ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms as herein recognized are violated shall be an effective remedy. So they have to ensure that there is to be an effective remedy, notwithstanding that the violation has been committed by persons acting in an official capacity. All right. B, and that's a hinge that is very thin. It's a thin line when you're talking about state action and state actors. I know they make it seem like it's a very thick and tough bar to get past, but there's some considerations that they're not telling you about at the end of the day, and we'll unpack that idea and concept later on. But B, to ensure that any person, right, to ensure that any person claiming such a remedy shall have his right thereto to determine by competent judicial, administrative or legislative authorities, or by any other competent authority provided for by the legal system of the state, and to develop the possibilities of judicial remedy. And to develop the possibilities of judicial remedy. Right? C, to ensure that the competent authorities shall enforce such remedies when granted. Right? And then Article 3 and 4, just because it's short and it's right in, all of this is really in line with it, but I don't want to bore you guys with reading through it when I know you guys are smart enough to read it for yourself. Article 3, the states parties to the present convention undertake to ensure that the equal right of men and women to the enjoyment of all civil and political rights set forth in the present convention. Right? Because, it gets real sexist in some countries, in America too, in some regards. But that's to try to prevent that. And then Article 4 says, in time of public emergency, right? Section 1, in time of public emergency. So this is even when they try to say war powers, emergency, FEMA camps and all of this are going to come into play. So even in times of public emergency, which threatens the life of the nation and the existence of which is officially proclaimed, the states parties to the present convention may take measures derogating from their obligations under the present convention to the extent strictly required, so by the exigencies of the situation, provided that such measures are not inconsistent with their other obligations under international law and do not involve discrimination solely on the ground of race, color, sex, language, religion, or social origin, right? And your heritage, your religion, right? Those are typically things that they're discriminating on, or your quote-unquote race, right? Or they don't even, go by race anymore. They just go by what they see. So they, determine based on your color or your sex. Or if they, wait till you actually open your mouth, they'll discriminate upon you based on the language or the way you use the language or your lack thereof. So this is, again, in place to help prevent that. So the rest of it, you guys can look at it, check out, read it for yourself. But I just wanted to highlight those parts and pieces, respectively. So you guys, clearly, clearly somebody left something out in terms of the translation when it comes to how quote unquote policy enforcers are supposed to be, enforcing these laws, because I don't know, maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. This doesn't seem like any of this that's going on now has anything to do with what they were told to do and what the U.S. signed on to do. When it said they was going to protect and uphold and maintain these principles, and protect these human rights, these fundamental rights. But obviously, somebody, missed something in translation and retraining these people or trying to allow a corrupt system to just work itself on out, let Johnny figure out his own problems, is not working, because time and time again, and the statistics are out there, and I'll let others prove me wrong or right, that you're looking at repeat offenders, right? And then when you look at what's going on in terms of what happened recently in the UN, and if you guys can drop me a link in the chat for this, if you know what I'm talking about, please do. This past Monday, the UN, and I believe it was the same 117 nations or so that we were talking about, in prior classes and conversations, that came together and lambasted the United States in the past, last year about this time, for its overcriminalization and, its human peonage and, just general human trafficking and continuation of slavery in America, modern day America. Just kind of wagging the finger and letting them know that the international community is not really too happy about this. And it's funny to me, because when you look at the local media, which I know is different for, depending on where you're at, but when you look at the local media and their response to it, it's almost like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, it's a rumor that, that this is going on, and that, we've got to be concerned about the UN saying that that's going to happen, because what you'll often hear them talk about in the news is that the UN is trying to take, state sovereignty. The UN is going to come in and they're going to take our guns and they're going to do this, going to do that. And it's not that the UN is really trying to come in and, abrogate state sovereignty. They're trying to stop genocide. They're trying to stop human trafficking and human peonage all across the planet. Why? Because that's what, the nations of the UN have agreed and signed on to do, right? And like when you look at the High Commissioner's website and you dig in that a little bit, there's been several trials and investigations going on, you know, around different, you know, players that the U.S. interacts with and does a lot of things with, that, you know, a lot of dark and seedy things have been going on in the background that, you know, came out to light. Most recently, some of these in form of, you know, and they say whenever you want to find out what's really going on, you just got to follow the money. And so when you follow the money, on some of the stories that came out of the Panama Papers, and from my recollection of what I was looking at that time, because you know, I'm not an investigative journalist or anything. I'm just kind of looking at stuff, you know, and taking it for what I can take it for, and you know, going with it from there. But since kind of seeing the fallout from that, when you look at like the whole Panama Papers that happened, you know, and when that came out and how they were trying to spin it on the Russians and all the rest of this type stuff. Well, you know, the undercurrent, they weren't talking about American news. It was all these business, you know, American business owners and, you know, rich clientele that was, you know, working with this particular bank and these particular, you know, finance managers and hedge fund managers and stuff that typically wouldn't be doing this type of stuff or shouldn't be doing it. And just like when I was first coming into the information and Moor started showing and proving how these politicians are heavily invested in this prison industrial complex that we see today. And then, you know, there's documentaries on Netflix and all the rest of this type of stuff where they talk about like the top and the major prison industrial businesses, and it's like 2 or 3 of them that like run everything. All right. Well, when you think about industry and you think about, you know, how this whole shebang is set up, and the system within the system, you have to realize, you know, economies of scale, why they're doing these things, right? And how they've got this set up is so ingenious, because on the surface, you know, if you weren't paying attention, everything's legal, everything's legitimized, right? But when you get into the nuts and bolts, or the meat and potatoes, you know, the thick of it, you find out that the Constitution says one thing, their statutes, ordinances, and codes say another, and then in between that, there's been some backroom deals going on, right, that allow them to seemingly, legitimately, logically justify that, you know, that seemingly at the time slight deviation from the Constitution, you know, and oftentimes when you read the cases, they often talk about in courts a slippery slope. Well, we're at the tail end of that slippery slope, people, you know, and the crap rolls downhill, okay? So if things aren't looking too rosy right now, that's why, all right? They've kicked you out of, you know, your vast estate and, you know, got you paying rent at the end of the day at every level, okay? And going back to the previous classes and you know, talking about what we were talking about before, they being the corporatocracy relinquished their jurisdiction over the Moors at AA 2221. You know, that is on record, you know, documented evidence and proof, because it says relinquish, you know, and if you don't know what relinquish means, then, you know, get a really good dictionary, compare the synonyms, the antonyms, look at the, you know, the etymon, see what the root cause and the, you know, the words, and we'll put it together and come up with another understanding, you know, based on whatever you guess it is. But I really want you to understand what relinquish means, because from there you should see the responsibility, right, that comes upon and becomes incumbent upon Moors to step up, you know, and take their place amongst the affairs of men, right? So when we're talking about, and this is kind of, you know, backing up, when we're talking about these rights, and we're talking about, you know, these liberties, realize again like it was talking about in the document, you know, these rights and these conditions have to be created, right? This situation, this circumstance of being a Negro didn't just happen. We didn't just, you know, wake up one day and all of a sudden we were Negroes. No, it was a process. There was a fundamental mental, physical, spiritual, you know, breakdown of us as a people that happened over the course of generations, centuries, lifetimes, all right, that brought us to a point of servitude, peonage, okay, to where once the chains physically, the iron, you know, collars were removed, just like an elephant, you know, that you keep chained up and pinned down for too long, you'll stick to, you know, to your little area, you know, your area of confinement. Even when, you know, even though the vestiges of that which kept you in physical bondage have been completely removed, right? Mentally, you are still confined and stuck, you know, and the cognitive dissonance, as some say, traps you, okay? And you know, that's just where we are as a people, and that's really a hard thing to talk about. It's a real difficult thing to deal with as a people, because it's mental. You know what I mean? It's not something you can really put your finger on and say, oh, you know, like a thorn in my finger. Oh, this is the thorn in my finger that I need to get out to stop this pain. You know what I mean? It's not that simple, because, like I said, it's mental. It's not on the surface of things, until, you know, we practice meditation, or we have a time, or we set aside some moments of self-examination so that we can, you know, reflect or think about, you know, whatever it is we need to think about or reflect on. So unless we do that, you know, or unless life hits us in a way that makes us think about certain things, right, that fundamentally affect us, we'll never think about it. You know, it's like, if I've never been hungry, I don't know what it's like to ever go without food. So, you know, for me to know how to cook, you know, may never cross my mind, because I've never been hungry per se. Or if, you know, I've always had a way to get around, you know, pulling out a map and you know, going from point A and point B, you know, never really worked for me, and it's really not going to work for me if I've got Google Maps. You know, if I had, you know, something like that all my life, if I had a digital map to just punch in address A, address B, and, you know, it's going to give me a turn by turn, and it's even going to talk to me, you know, it's those things. And going back to the map thing, it's that lack of me having to pull out the map that weakens me mentally in my skills of navigation. So that when that map fails me, if and when it does, because it will do, you know, your battery's going to run out at some point, right? You know, the charger's going to, you know, not charge at some point. It's going to break. You know, all you know, nothing lasts forever. But if and when that happens, and if I don't know how to use a map, or, you know, use my common sense of direction, if I don't know where I'm going at the end of the day, I'm screwed. You know, I'm lost. Literally lost without it. So, you know, I say that because, you know, when they talk about taking the road less traveled, I never saw a problem with doing the busy work. You know what I mean? Because it's in doing that busy work that you find, you know, the technical skills and abilities to be able to do the easy stuff. You know what I mean? And to be able to find the workarounds. You know what I mean? It's like, once you go through something, you have a little bit of experience with it, you know, then it's not that hard. It's just like riding a bike, you know. Once I get on it and I you know, fall off a couple of times, I'm going to either figure out how to not fall off that joker, or I'm going to learn how to ride. You know what I mean? One of the other two is going to have to happen. You know, 'cause I'm not just going to keep busting my tail, you know, every 5 minutes. So, I'm saying all that to reiterate and to kind of bring us back to the point that when we're talking about these writs and the writ of discovery, for the topic and the sake of conversation today, and when we're talking about, this executive order and all this stuff, you're going to have to do some heavy lifting. A lot of the work, most of the work has been done. The prophet did everything he could do but kill us, as the saying goes, and he brought us everything it takes to save us. And when he did it, he was holding the one-on-one questionnaire, and the Circle 7 Quran, right? Because really, for real, that's all you need. That's all you really need to get it. Because that's what it's going to take for you to get to your earthly salvation. You know what I mean? Once you work through those one-on-ones and you read through that Circle 7, the Circle 7 is going to give you, the other half of the spiritual end, and then the one-on-ones will give you the other half of the historical or the national end, right? You put them together, you get a fuller comprehension or understanding. Or so you should, maybe, possibly. It's hoped, it's desired, you know what I mean? But that's just my understanding portion of knowledge, as far as what I've got. And I may be wrong. But when we're talking about all these things, the prophet actually had to do something. He wasn't just sitting in a glass house somewhere, just kind of chilling and kicking it, with his wives and everything. Like, he was out in the barbershops, on the corners, in the streets, building with Moors, going through it and getting stuff done. He was traveling internationally, you know what I mean, navigating, went to conferences, you know what I mean, and made stuff happen, put stuff on the record, you know what I mean. So much so that today we can look back on those events and occurrences in history, in quote unquote his story, and still find those events, right? Like, we can still find it. There's still records out there of Noble Drew Ali existing, being in the world, doing what he did. For all the haters and naysayers, he was real. They can't say that he did not walk among his people. All right? Because, at almost 100 years later, from him starting everything off in terms of the movement, it's almost like he never existed in some people's minds, in most people's minds, you know what I mean, that you talk to. And that was something that really, threw me off at first, because it's like you talk about all these people in black history, from Marcus Garvey to, Malcolm X, MLK, and they never talked about, Noble Drew Ali. You never hear about it, you know what I mean? Like, something about this ain't adding up, you know what I mean? And if he had so many people behind him, right? If there were that many people behind him at the time, it's like, at the time, when I first come in, I'm like, why is nobody mentioning Noble Drew Ali? But then you've got to realize that he was talking about Islam and us being Moors and, things of that sort. And that really doesn't jive well when you're talking about a Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Christian society, right? When you have beat into the brains of the people that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, you know what I mean? They can only be saved through an image of Jesus that is Caucasian with blonde hair and blue eyes. Because I've experienced this, growing up, and anybody that was around churches, anything, or you visit churches or you've been in a church where they've got the pictures or the mantles on the walls and everything. And it never made sense to me, even as a child, why you would have all these grown Negroes, of all shapes, sizes, and, educated and, uneducated, worshiping, praising, clapping their hands, singing and dancing. And on the wall, you've got a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, European Jesus on the wall. You know what I mean? And, quote-unquote, Yahshua ben Yosef Isa, and that's the deity that we're saying is our Lord and Savior. And then we've got in the very same book that we're reading all this stuff out of, where it says, feet like burnished brass, hair like lamb's wool, yada, 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 right? made no sense to me, right? And whenever I brought it up, they would always tell me, "Oh, your head in the clouds, you know. You thinking this, you thinking that, you know." And people can tell you I was a terror in Sunday school, but I was just having fun, really, you know, because I was just like, this makes no sense. This is crazy, and it really, you know, in so many words, it was a big joke to me at the time. But now that now that I understand the metaphysics and everything behind it, you know, and like Ty says, I understand or understand, you know, why it is the way it is. You know what I mean? Because some people, for whatever, you know, lack of will or whatever, they are more comfortable with the children's version of the story. Okay? And you can apply that across the board. And I'm being so honest. Some people are more comfortable with the children's version of the story. Because when you get into the adult version of the story, right, it gets a little more complicated. It gets a less, you know, less happy-go-lucky and more, all right, now you got to be an adult. You know, now you got to recognize some things. You got to clean your room. You got to wash your tail. You know, you got to brush your teeth. You know, that kind of stuff, you know. And for some people, that you know, routineness of it, or that I guess the rigidness of it, you know, in terms of there being some limitations in some people's minds, that's too much. So they'll rather, you know, live in a fantasy world of sorts, and because they're comfortable with that, because the children's version is, you know, like I said, they're just more comfortable with the children's version of the story, I guess. You know, I don't know. I can't call it. You know, I'm just giving my 2 cents. But it's 7:42. We're going to go on and open the floor up for questions before it gets too late here. And then if not, I'm going to wrap up with the conversation talking about the Writ of Discovery, because I had a couple more things I wanted to highlight on that before we go. And then we'll kind of, you know, go from there. But, you know, be thinking about what you guys want to talk about for next week. You know, hit me in the chat if you already got something in mind. But that's pretty much it for today, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna highlight this stuff in this Doctrine of Discovery, Writ of Discovery. So if you guys want to hang out for that, you know, hang around. But it's 7:43, and I don't want to get too deep off into any more tangents today, because I think I've rambled enough. I've rambled enough for this week. But let me just show this to you guys, and then we'll open the floor up for questions, and then we'll kind of close out from there. And that should take us up to about 8:30. So, looking at the Writ of Discovery and Disclosure, which we talked about the top half, you know, last week. And really, this is more so for this template is more so for when you're dealing with mortgage issues, and you know, it's last minute, last second buzzer beater kind of situation, and you're just like, you know, I don't know what to do. Well, you've got this right here, you know, make it fit, make it work for your situation, and it might be able to you know, help you out, or at least, you know, punch the clock for you, so you get a little bit more time to figure out whatever else it is you need to do. So I just wanted to reiterate this section here at the bottom. So any willful non-disclosure and default, right? So we already know what non-disclosure and default is. If not, you know, go back and check the other classes, or, you know, well, actually, we already know what disclosure is. I mean, you giving up the information. Default, you're in default. You know, you do not pass go, do not collect $200, right? You violated, or you missed the deadline. Typically, that's what we're talking about with the default. The deadline is the deadline to respond. So let me just back up, because y'all actually can see it, but for those who can't see this, I'm gonna read this into the record. This part right here above it. So the representatives, trustees, FOFers, or assigns are to materially and expediently return the same request, discovery, and disclosure as presented, and with all 12 points or issues fully answered, you know how many other points you've got in there, fully answered within the allotted 20 days of receipt of the same, any untoward or deceptive acts, misrepresentations, diversions, deceitful, so unwarranted and deceptive acts, diversions, deceitful, redirections, which is what they often like to do, is they want to try to redirect. Oh, we don't deal with that. Oh, you got to deal with that department. Oh, you filed it in the wrong. Oh, you got to file it here. No, you're a trustee, you're a FOFR. You figure it out. I've given you the command. You know, I've given you the order in writing, in black and white. You know, it's not unconscionable, right? Because it's written in English. And last time I checked, that's the state language here. You know, we speak English here in Northwest Amexem. You know, because we're under colonial oppression. But in 2016, that's how we communicate. You know, for business purposes. So yeah, you can't really just try to redirect me with your incompetence, because that's typically what it's showing, right? When a clerk tries to tell you filed some stuff in the wrong place, so they can't take it, or they try to or when a secretary to a particular law firm tries to tell you that your name on judicial proclamations aren't legal documents, right? That's a redirection tactic, in so many words. So, or any incomplete or non-answered response to the questions presented to the representatives, holders, or trustees, etc., will be considered an affirmation of secret, disguise, and disingenuous. Pardon me, my eyes jumping around. Disguise and disingenuous intent. Any avoidance of truth shall be considered an quote-unquote inducement to fraud, and the said failure of response on the part of representatives, trustees, FOFRs, or assigns neglecting their responsibility to answer every one and all the specific 12 points above noted loan issues shall constitute a violation of trust. All right? A breach of trust and a tacit acquiescence established for the record by non-compliance. These are heavy phrases here. All right, if you don't know these words, go look them up. Black's Law 4th, 3rd, 1 through 7 is pretty good to check out. I'm just saying. The same dispensation shall be published for the public record. All right, period. So if they try to bury it, you've already put it on the public record. If you know what to do with these writs, if you've CC'd it, or you've gotten with other active Moors to get it on the record. All right. So any willful non-disclosure and default. Hold on, let me make sure the room's reset. So any willful non-disclosure and default in this matter shall be deemed a dishonor, and thereby voiding all positions of trust. So they no longer can claim to hold the office. Since their office are void, their claim at that point is voided. Their position is void. All right? Any allegations or claims of ownership or interest made by any name, any bank or whatever, or by its representatives, trustees, FOFRs, agents, contractors, or signs shall be held as null and void. The affiant reserves all rights of claim, and the affiant's affidavit of request and discovery and disclosure shall stand as law. All right? If they don't respond, point for point, rebut or answer to the questions, then it's assumed that they've acquiesced to that statement, that they're admitting it to be true, or they're not answering because they don't want to incriminate themselves any further. All right, thereby putting them in default. Right, and that's why it's talking about default. Okay, so then it goes on to say, and this is the catch-22 for whoever it is that's trying to get all huffy puffy and wants to act like they're a judge or a magistrate, of the Supreme Court, or they were assigned under Article 3 by the Supreme Court to tell you legally what to do with your documents. Typically, they have none of those qualifications, typically. They don't look like Ruth Ginsburg, you know what I mean? Sotomayor, if they don't look, or they weren't sent or assigned by somebody like that, they don't have anywhere near the authority they're claiming most of the time. They're just somebody that's threatening your life, you know, just like any burglar or any thug or other criminal on the side of the street would do. It's no different. I promise you, it's no different. They just happen to have a more refined clown suit, all right? They just don't have the red nose sometimes. This legal notice to the principal is a legal notice to agent. And this legal notice to agent is a legal notice to principal. And I'm sorry if, you know, if you feel like you're a clown. If it hurts, say ouch. If you really are who you say you are, just follow the Constitution. That's all I'm saying. You know, no hard feelings. Nothing harsh here. I'm really just wanting you guys to step up and be who you say you are. You know, we gave you the law. We handed you the Constitution. We put it in black and white. It shouldn't be that difficult to figure out in 2016. You know, but yet and still, we have these issues. But anyway, sincerely yours, you know, and it says, now, where it says natural person, you're the flesh and blood natural person. You're not artificial, right? You're not the de facto. You're the natural person. You came from a womb, hopefully, you know, unless you're a test tube baby, you know. Shouts out to the test tube babies and the clones out there, you know. I'm not going to discriminate, you know. Clones' lives matter too, I guess. That was really just a joke, but yeah. Improper persona, right? In one's own proper person, right? Sui juris, sui heritis, right? So let me pull up the sui juris. We're just gonna Google that right quick because I don't feel like grabbing the Black's Law. You guys know where to find this stuff. All right, you aren't rookies. So sui juris, it says of age, independent. Huh. Literally, Latin, literally, of one's own right. So you're doing something sui juris at law, you're doing it of your own right. Right? As a natural person. Follow me? Oh, y'all couldn't see that. Let me share the screen. Y'all couldn't see that in the chat. So when they're talking about sui juris right here, it says sui juris, law, adjective, right? Of age, semicolon, independent. You're acting independently. So sui juris, of one's own right. Latin, literally, of one's own right. You know what I mean? All right. You'll keep that in mind. Sui juris. Sui juris. Right? And then right here, sui heritis. Another buzzword. I'm just going to Google right quick because I want to, you know, save some time here. Because I want to hurry up and get this done and get this out because you know, there's a lot of other stuff going on, guys. So let's see, sui heritis definition. And I want to make sure that, you know, for all those who can't watch the class, you know, with us in the time frame that they watch it, that they get it, you know, as soon as possible, right? So the sooner we finish it, the sooner we can get it downloaded and up to you guys. And, you know, you can get us what, you know, you can send us all your good questions and comments. So sui heritis, plural of sui eris, right? Plural of sui eris. So let's just jump. And you know, I apologize for you guys for not pulling this up and having it ready earlier. But looking or feeling sad. No, that's not what we're looking for. That's the word of the day. Wow. And it's not even giving me the definition on this. So that's interesting. So let me jump back out of this. Because obviously I'm gonna have to look this up. Yeah. So, and I'm looking it up before I show it to you guys, because I don't want to have to jump into some stuff and, I don't know, bore you guys. But yeah, I'm really trying to look up this sui heritis, but just to try to show you guys what it means. Alright, that's not what I was looking for. Okay. Sui heritis by owners, by co-owners of patrimony. That's not what I'm looking for. Alright, so I'm just going to go on and grab the Black's Law. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. right. And so we're just wrapping up, you know what I mean, for the class today. But this sui heritis, because you'll see this on the documents and on the writs, and you know, oftentimes, you know, you don't want to. You're running the Latin and you don't know what it means, so you definitely want to look it up. Definitely. So let's see if I can get it. And if I can't get it, we'll just hit it real hard next class. All right, sui juris. All right, here we go. So sui juris, what we just read, Black's Law 4th edition, page 1602. If you want to follow along, sui juris, of his own right, possessing full social and civil rights, not under any legal disability or the power of another, or guardianship having capacity to manage one's own affairs, not under legal disability to act for oneself. Right? And the sui heritis is real short. In civil law, one's own heirs, proper heirs. Right? So when the prophet in the literature and in the work said that we are a part and parcel of this said government, being heirs, all right, that, you know, is in so many words, those are the magic words that we know, or that allows us to know that we have a stake in this, in terms of what the prophet left us, in terms of the vast estate. We know that as active Moors, as Moors who put the prophet first and who hold, you know, what he's putting in our heart and into, you know, in our mind and as truth, that there is a vast estate that he left for us, you know, for us to be able to take care of ourselves. And there's an order of government as well, right? And there's all this other stuff that was put under the temple, that the temple was mandated in order to do for the benefit of the people, all right? And since 1928, you know, and the transition of the prophet, those things were supposed to be carried out, right? But for whatever reason, they weren't. So now, you know, it's incumbent upon those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, okay, to do what we can, to do the best we can to make sure that this, you know, we keep the lights on, you know, so that when the masses do wake up, that we've got the secretaries in place to be able to start signing people, you know, to start filling out the paperwork and all that good stuff. And if you're wondering what we're talking about, we're really just talking about the name judicial proclamations first, you know what I mean? And then as you have different issues that arise in life, you know what I mean, other writs will come into play, or you know, you may develop different processes for yourself or for your household to use, you know, to hand down to your children or your children's children, so that whenever those issues come up, they have a guideline or a means and ways of dealing with those issues, you know, without too much confusion. And unfortunately, because, you know, the family's kind of broke down to the degree and manner that it has, you know, we've got so many issues, and, you know, we have such a hard time coming together as family, you know, these days. But, you know, we work it out as we often do, you know, in our own special way. And it's really beautiful at the end of the day, because it's all, and you know, it's funny because I was building with the, you know, with the Moors, and, you know, when we talk about this concept of cellular memory, right? And, you know, when you check out Brother Abdullah's work, and he talks about cellular memory, and he mentions it in this book right here, right? Illumination of the Mind, which, you know, great book, definitely got to check out. But when you talk about cellular memory, and I was looking at something that actually popped up, you know, as I'm looking at other stuff. We have a certain innate capability, and the ancients always knew that, you know, the words, the thoughts, you know, create a certain frequency in the atmosphere, and that frequency or that thought, you know, that energy takes on a certain motion because of the atmosphere, right, or because of its natural polarity, right, and then it, you know, we could call that, you know, when that energy is expressed, or when it's condensed to a certain degree. Sometimes it manifests as electricity, right? or static electricity in the form of lightning bolts and things of that sort. So we really, scientifically can prove in 2016 that there's a connection between man, the cosmos, and the effects that we call weather, right? And the ancients, would express that in the form of the rain dance, right? But, I digress. Speaking to the cellular memory, right? We as a people have always been able to do extraordinary things with the least of physical support, right? And when people often ask or they try to figure out why that is the case, oftentimes we'll speak to our melanin, you know what I mean? And the melanin really is just a conduit, all right, of our consciousness, which should already be, which is already innate within us. But the melanin, which everybody has, in various degrees, but everybody has the melanin, has melanin in them, because everybody has, the ability to think, for the most part, unless you're retarded or, there's some, physical connection that didn't, manifest because there was some cellular degeneration that happened at some point, or the human body or the mother was probably exposed to some type of radiation, right? We're dealing with the atomic age, and that radiation can create the wrong type of energy or frequency, and that can negatively affect the DNA and cause malformations or deformations in the human body structure, or psyche, what have you. And let me just reiterate for the record that they've got HAART, which is supposed to be a weather control device and all that, but then you've got the miniature versions that they've got on the Bearcats and the baby tanks. And I was talking about last week, and they can cook you from the inside out. These things are real. You know what I mean? These technologies are real. I'm not, and these are not new technologies. These are old technologies. But I say all that to say all of them can be null and void, all right, if you're using this, right? Because they have something called an EMP wave that can knock all electronics out, right? And they're always worried about it coming from where? The sun, right? Because we've been having solar flares and whatnot popping up. So, just keep that in mind, just some thoughts. But it's 8:03 and we're coming up on 8:30, and I wanted to open the floor for questions and comments. So any and everybody in the room, please let me know what you're thinking, what's on your mind. Holla at me. You didn't have to turn your video off. I was actually waiting for a question. But let me know what you guys are thinking in the chat, or open your mic and holla at me. Let me know like I said, what's on your mind. Because like I said, this is more so supposed to be an open forum. I want to reiterate that this is a platform where anybody can come if they want to, demonstrate, or they've got questions or comments. I want to try to keep it as open as possible. But of course within, certain parameters, because we don't want to get too crazy. But let me know what you're thinking in the chat. Let me know if you got any questions. This again was just really a review today. I wanted to kind of just back up and touch on some things to highlight what we've already been talking about, which, because I really didn't want to give you guys too much anything new today. Islam. So yeah, we got some late boomers coming in. Yeah, we had a lot of people come in and out today. If you didn't get a chance to watch the whole class, there's no hard feelings on my part. I'm not gonna penalize you or nothing. I'm not gonna feel some type of way, but make sure you get a chance, because it's gonna be up on YouTube later. To go back and look at it, review it if you want to. As always, hit us with a comment, with a question. But yeah, like we've got a lot going on, guys, and I'm just gonna kind of close up from here, unless there's some questions on the floor or comments that come about. But we've got a lot of transition going on. We definitely want to highlight the fact that they are accelerating the extrajudicial killings as we accelerate our, our activities, and as we are become more active, family, it is incumbent upon those who know to inform and warn and notify those who do not know that they are potential casualties of war. Okay, if they do not understand and take very, 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 very serious the status of being civil liter mortuus, all right, or allowing others to falsely presume that one is civil liter mortuus by answering or allowing one to acquiesce to the circumstances of being determined to be a Negro, all right, which these are rebuttable presumptions, all right, and if you doubt that these presumptions are rebuttable or that they cannot be rebutted, please send me an email, and we'll continue that conversation later. But I would love to see, just a little bit more. Oh yes, I would like. We got to comment that everyone download the Moorish directory app is important because emergency alerts will go through. This is from the Moorish directory community. So yeah, another big announcement. For those who don't know, some of the work we've been doing at MoorisDirectory.com. If you haven't already, go to the website, download, either on your Apple or your iPhone, device, or your Android device, what have you. Download the Moorish Directory application. All right. Now, I've got it on my phone, and it's got like over 20 different apps and different functionalities to it right now that we've got put on there, and it's totally free. You don't have to donate anything if you don't want to, but it would be nice, to support your own. But we really want you to get it because this past week we were able to activate the emergency alert system, right? And for those who've already been aware, and if I've talked to you about what we were doing with the app, or what our intentions were with the app, part of the functionality of the app is not just to inform you of what's going on in terms of giving you documents, or you just having, say, the rights card, which a lot of people have been able to use in different times of need. And really the rights card is meant to be printed out, laminated, put that in your pocket, and then you just hand that to them if you don't know what else to say or do and anything. And if you're still in transition, the rights card is kind of a way to walk you through that, those more stressful situations, when you got somebody with a gun to your head. Yeah, there's a rights card. If you go to the app, somebody in the chat asked, if you go to the app, it's number 1, 2, 3, 4 in the list, and it's a little star. It's a red background with a green star, and it says rights card, and it comes up. You'll see a PDF, and you can email that PDF to yourself or send it to yourself, or you can download it through the website. And like I said, it's in the app so that you can be able to just quick reference, kind of show it to somebody if you need to. But it's meant to be printed out, like I said, laminated. Yes, and it is in the Moorish Directory app. It's number 4. It's like the 4th one in the app. It's the fourth little button. All right, 4th function in the app. So you go to the rights card, and it's going to say, and I'm just going to read it right quick for you guys. Rights card on the front, it says, I hereby invoke and refuse to waive all of the following rights and privileges afforded to me by the U.S. Constitution. Right? And it goes into the 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment, Miranda v. Arizona, so on and so forth, right? And that is a short, very, very short, copious writ that you can present, to anybody, like I said, in those more stressful situations when, some people may have some guns to your head, and they've got you under threat, duress, or coercion. I'm just saying. All right? But the real reason why, and it's got some other, crazy cool stuff in there. You got links to activemoors.com, the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. You got a copy of the Holy Quran, Circle 7 in there. Of course, the Constitution, the Zodiac Constitution, in short. And you know, I'll let you guys, you know, go and check it out. But that, you know, sit away from the commercial break. The app now has the capability to give you guys emergency alerts or alerts because it's coming electronically, but alerts to let you know what's going on in your community. So as it gets more sophisticated, right, and as we get, you know, the family linked in through the various Moorish directory applications and websites, when something happens, all right, you'll get a direct buzz, you know, to your phone through the application, and it'll show up in your notifications. And you know, we had a little testing going on this past week, and it literally came through. My phone buzzed, it lit up, you know what I mean, and it was on my notification screen, just like, you know, any other application would notify you of something. And similar to how, like, you got the Amber Alerts and things of that sort, it would kind of be like the Moorish version of that, all right? So that if there's a Moor that's in trouble in your area, okay, or if there's something going on, you will be able to put that alert out or receive, you know, or receive that alert from your friends and family within the Moorish community in that area, right? So that everybody can be safe. You know what I mean? Because too often, more so often than not, we get in predicaments in situations, and you know, just nobody knows what's happening. You know, nobody knows that anything has even happened. Nobody knows that there's even an emergency to be heard, to even be had. And it's not until 2 or 3 weeks later, or 2 or 3 days later, or hours later, you know, we find out what happened, or you know, until the quote unquote body cam is released, you know, the dash cam is released, that we even know that something even happened. So with this is a way for us as Moors to preemptively, you know, be able to handle those situations by getting the word out that, hey, you know, something's happened. You know what I mean? There's an emergency. You know, Amber Alert, you know, be on the lookout, you know, XYZ, you know, and if we can get, as you know, as the system gets more and more sophisticated, we'll be able to give more and more, you know, in different types of notifications and things. But that system also, like I said, is for emergency purposes, mainly to get the word out on those, like the instances I just described, right? You get pulled over, you know, you're getting told or something, you know, they kidnapped your children, you know what I mean, unlawfully. You know, you're about to get kidnapped unlawfully. Like, somebody needs to know what's happening. So again, family, get the app, download it. It's imperative. You know what I mean? I really cannot stress it enough. It does not cost anything to download this. We do not make a dime off of you downloading this. We only get anything if you donate it. That's the only way we get anything to be able to support this. And I can guarantee you this system does not run for free. All right? Nothing we do for, you know, with the directory is free to, you know, for us, because we're paying for this stuff out of pocket, and we're, you know, we're offering it to the community, and we're asking if you feel that it has any, you know, benefit to you to donate. You know what I mean? If you want to keep it going, if you want to see this, you know, this stuff in place to be able to help support our family. You know what I mean? Because more so often than not, it's not the crime that goes unpunished. It's the crime that could have been prevented. You know what I mean? That's more so, how should I put it, disheartening in the grand scheme of things. And if you are more so about prevention, you know, then you don't have as many problems to deal with on the back end, right? And that's just my take on things. That's just my perspective. You know, other people have different philosophies for whatever reason. But it's 8:14, like I said. I'm just closing up here. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, like I said, get at me with an email. I don't have any grand epiphanies right now that I think, you know, will be pressing. It's going on about 1 hour and 40 right now with the class. So unless there's any pressing questions on the floor from you guys, you know, in the chat, I'm gonna kind of start wrapping it up here. So I'm gonna talk for the next couple minutes, just to give you guys some time to figure it out if you want to, but we'll close out from here. But yeah, guys, closing thoughts and remarks from your boy here. be careful, stay safe. You know what I mean? You know, I had some situations going on this past week, but everybody's safe, safe and sound. We want to, you know, so shouts out and hopes and prayers to all of those who are safe and sound. I cannot reiterate the importance of understanding the Constitution, you know, and studying that and reviewing that as often as you can, because it is the law of the land, all right? And they're all bound, they being, you know, all people in these corporate offices and wardship positions, they are all bound by Article 6, you know, and to the contrary, notwithstanding anything else notwithstanding. So it's really incumbent upon us to know the law of the land and to enforce it, you know, as Moors. And we talk about ills being the lawgivers and the bays being the law enforcers or the governors, right? We really have to, you know, really like take that to heart, because there are certain functions, there are certain activities that are going to be required for us that hold these titles, you know, of nobility. You know, and that need, that necessity is I cannot reiterate enough. It's ever so present. You know what I mean? The time to act is now. If you know what it is, you know what I mean? If you know it's about to rain, you know when it's gonna rain, you know how bad the rain is, you know, get a poncho, get a rain suit, get an umbrella. You know what I mean? If you know who the Moors are, if you know that this is our vast estate, get up on this nationality and birthright. Understand that you're the heirs to the vast estate and act accordingly. You know what I mean? Because this life is meant to be lived accordingly. It's not meant to just for us to just have this information and lament over it and just keep rolling over it and being like, hey, you know, that's good to know. Yeah, you know, I'm a Moor and I'm an heir. All right, but what are you doing with that, you know, information? What are you trying to do? You know, what have you tried to do? All right? Because and I'll say it again, I've said it before, as the young Moors coming up, you know, come into the fold or waking up, they're looking for certain things to be in place. They're looking for certain support to be in place. And if they're not getting it from their from their community, they're not going to stick around with that community very long, you know. And as Moors, I've seen so often, and you know, and as we waking up, you know, into this conscious community, we kind of hop and skip around, you know, from one, you know, body of knowledge to the next, and every couple of years, people are hopping and skipping around. And I've had conversations with older heads in the knowledge, you know, who have been on Moorish science, and they kind of got off of Moorish science because they were hopping and skipping around. They were looking for whatever it is they was looking for, and they didn't get it. All right. Well, the more realize that Moorish science encompasses all of that. Right, and once you get through going through all of that, you're going to end up right back at Moorish science. So it's best to just study it and study it well while you can, you know, rather than jumping around and all that other stuff, because it will confuse you intentionally. You know what I mean? And if you ever get lost in Moorish science, this is just New Najeeb's point. Go back to the Prophet. Go see what he said. You know what I mean? And see if that lines up with whatever it is you're confused about. And go from there first, you know what I mean, in the conversation. And if you can't go from there first, then you ain't been digging deep enough, because the Prophet gave you everything it takes to save a nation. You know what I mean? And if you don't believe that, turn in your turbans, your cards, your buttons, and fez, and go back to the state that the Prophet found you in, because this is for active Moors and not passive Moors, Islam. So, with that being said, it's 8:19, almost 8:30. And if there's no questions on the floor, we'll close it out 10 minutes early today. So with that, I don't see anybody typing. So with that, I'll just say peace and love. And we're going to close out on the Ustream. So Islam, peace and love to you guys. And then we'll have a conversation over here in the chat to try to figure out, you know, some more details with the homework for next week. Because, you know, sometimes they get kind of shy. But all y'all on YouTube, you know, shouts out to you guys. Peace and love. You know, big ups to all my Canaanland Moors, all my Moors in Philly, California, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, you know, that I've been building with lately. Texas, you know, Houston, Austin, Corpus Christi. All right. Who else? My Mississippi Moors. Yeah, been hollering at y'all. Thank you guys for checking in. All my Moors in Tennessee. My Moors in Florida area. Purview of Philadelphia. All my Moors in Pittsburgh. That had the conference this past weekend, or weekend before last. Shouts out to all y'all. All my NOLA Moors. You know, all out there in the dirty boot. Right. One of my favorite Moors out of there, my boy Amazite Bay. You know, shouts out to that Moor getting stuff together on the front lines. I see you. All right. You know, Hazan. I always mess these names up. Hazan, Devon. Right. Both of them Moors doing it. And all of those Moors, you know, I don't want to, you know, step on your toes. If I can't say your name, I ain't mention it. You know, if I don't remember it. So no hard feelings there. But you know, shouts out to all the active Moors, man. We really are all we got at this point. So keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing, and making sure that the legacy doesn't die, man. Because we, you know, like I said, we all we got. And for all those who are watching worldwide, you know, and all that good stuff, we see you. We thank you for the support. You know what I mean? Me personally, I see the activity that you guys are doing. I see the changes in your language. You know, the active Moors called for it. You guys responded. You know what I mean? We hope to see more of that type of activity. You know what I mean? And as things go forward, you know, we hope to be able to come together on an even platform. You know, more level, right, than before. So, of course, peace and love to all of you guys and gals worldwide watching, you know, and keeping up with us and supporting us here in Northwest Amexem. So, again, it's 8:22. I'm going to sign off. All right, Islam, peace and love. Peace and love. It's colored, right, in lots of statutes, ordinances, and codes that were not properly ratified or totally disregard or go against the Constitution, right? Though it has been legislatively couched in the Constitution, when you really get into the effects and, you know, the follow through of a lot of these things, they're not following the Constitution. They're following something else. You know what I mean? And I'll let others, you know, determine and figure that out. But typically, you're looking at a corporatocracy that doesn't care about the people, you know what I mean? It only cares about maintaining that corporatocracy. But anyway, Rule 37, failure to make disclosures or to cooperate in discovery. And it's got sanctions, right? And it goes in, and this is just highlights that I'm reading here, and I'll let you guys go check it out. But it's Rule 37. But you've got a under Part A here, it says motion for an order. Which again, we're dealing with writs, but you know, just whenever you see motion, just think writs for right now. But motion for an order compelling disclosure or discovery. 1. In general, on notice to other parties and all affected persons, a party may move for an order compelling disclosure or discovery. The motion or writ must include a certification that the movement has in good faith conferred or attempted to confer with the person or party failing to make disclosure or discovery in an effort to obtain it without court action, right? Now right there, that might be shown in the form of, I don't know, a letter, maybe certified, you know, maybe certified, so that somebody has to, you know, sign for it when they get it. But I don't know, you know, it often, more than likely than not, can be cleared up with a good writ of discovery, right? Because with the good writ of discovery, I can cover, you know, all the grounds and bases that I need to discover or find out those facts that I normally may not be able to get from a willing defendant or prosecutor, you know what I mean, or opposite party for this matter. And so with the writ, And typically, if you're dealing with courts or whatever, it would be in the form of a motion. But you know, as more as we do with writs. So with the writ, you're asking or you're demanding that the person give you certain information or tell you certain information based on your request, right? And this is a formal legal process, you know, that they have to respond to. And if they don't, you know, then there's some, you know, legal and lawful consequences from there, right? In terms of being in default, right? Technical default based on the matter, right? Now, one rule that you guys may want to check out and maybe find some commonalities in, you know, in the roots of the Constitution. And if you understand due process, you may be able to find some other things. But just to let you know that there is something within their system. There is a rule that addresses these types of things. I just wanted to point out Rule 37 of the quote-unquote Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, right? Which we know is a de facto corporation. And we know that as Moors, we gave them, you know, Muslim law with, you know, which, in our understanding today, is in so many words a Frankenstein version of what we today call American law, you know, in so many ways, shapes, and forms. But for general census and purposes is an act of imperialism, you know what I mean? And in America, it acted in the form of colonialism. You know, when you look at Horace Greeley's information, and you know, they talk about "Go West, young man," and that whole, you know, European transition with the, you know, they show you with the stage coaches and all of that, and like if you familiar with Wells Fargo and all of that confusion that's been going on with them, you see the stagecoach on their emblem and everything. That's, you know, putting emphasis on that time when they were, you know, running fiat and funds for different, you know, gold and oil businessmen at the time. But long story short, I suffice that to say, you don't want to get that confused with a writ of discovery. All right. One is is points of history and time. The other one is a lawful writ, right? That as an Aboriginal Indigenous Moor or as a quote-unquote judge or magistrate, one would write to another court or a lower court, you know, for say an appeal or for an interlocutory appeal or things of that sort. So, you know, different stages in the process, whatever you're talking about. But initially, at the beginning of the case, you'll have something that's known if you ever dealt with a case, you know, fortunately or unfortunately. There's a period known as discovery, right? And when we talk about discovery, oftentimes there's some failures sometimes, and you know, a lot of times we don't know what it is we can do to deal with those failures or miscarriages of justice, you know, that often happen. And all right, so Friday class. I think I got the Ustream up. So, alright, that's running. Alright, we live on the Ustream. Let me get the link out. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I'm just getting the link out to everybody. Right quick.
This is also why the Europeans here took our nationality and put brands on us and start teaching the Negro preachers to tell us they were Afrocentric identities. So our people are walking around calling themselves Negro, Black, and Colored and feeling free to do that, not knowing that it makes them non-descendants. And when you give them the law facts, they think you're competing with the schools of thought.
Islam. Peace and love.
It is legal status.
All right. Still getting this out. Let me drop this on the book. On the faces. So today we're just getting started. Well, not really just getting started, but it's been a crazy day. And so, as always, happy holiday to all the active Moors out there. As always, we've got different stuff going on and whatnot. So, just bear with us as we bring all of these, these loose ends together for this time. And it's now 6:37, so we're going to get started today. So today we, in the spirit of review, similar to what we did last week, we're kind of taking a step back in our speed, in our pace, and our manner here. And a couple weeks ago or two, we were talking about the writ of discovery, right? Now, the writ of discovery is not to be confused with the doctrine of discovery, which of course is trying to give any legal advice. I'm just kind of reading this on my own accord, and just giving my own personal thoughts. So please don't take anything that I'm saying and run with it. I just look like a smart guy. I'm really just I'm done with it. I promise you, I'm very slow when it comes to this type of stuff. To appropriate court, a motion, right? Number 2, appropriate court, a motion for an order to a party must be made in the court where the action is pending. A motion for an order to a non-party must be made in the court where the discovery is or will be taken, right? So that's why, typically when you seeing people, you do want to CC whatever quote-unquote tribunal is claiming to hold jurisdiction over the matter, immediate jurisdiction over the matter, as well as, CCing everybody else. And that's just typical. Typically you want to put the other person that you're corresponding with, and dealing with on notice, because otherwise they wouldn't know what was going on. They wouldn't. How else would they be abreast of the newest occurrences in the case? Now something interesting I have highlighted here is specific motions. A, it says to compel disclosure. If a party fails to make a disclosure required by Rule 26A, any other party may move to compel disclosure for appropriate sanctions, right? Then Part B says to compel a discovery response. A party seeking discovery may move for an order compelling an answer, designation, production, or inspection, right? So you can compel for under Part B right here is saying, under their rules, that you have the right to compel an answer, designation, production, or inspection, right? And it says this motion may be if